You actually clicked this video? Oh, hang on. Are you telling me you've actually seen this movie? Whoa. Good on you. I guess that means I actually have to do the review now. Alright, let's do it. Hello everyone, my name is Jesse Heisel. I'm a filmmaker, and if you're familiar with this channel, you'll know that the horror genre is what I'm all about. Now today, for a review, I've got what I like to call a special gem in the horror genre, because I honestly don't believe that most of you will even know about this movie, which I find a little extra special. Today, I am going to be reviewing Legend Has It. Now this film, Legend Has It, is brought to you by the production company known as Prescribed Films, and it is written and directed by the founder of Prescribed Films, Insane Mike Saunders. So if the director is dubbing himself as Insane, well, you know you got a good movie. So here is a plot for Legend Has It. It starts off with a bunch of friends who are going to be taking a camping trip. Now, unbeknownst to them, there is a legend in the woods. The legend is there is a tree monster that was conjured up by vegan activists who created a spell in the woods to try and get rid of all of the meat eaters in the world. However, it backfired, and the tree monster now just kills anyone who comes to the forest. Now there, by itself, you would think that'd be good enough for a plot. But not when it's Prescribed Films. You see, there's a twist to this movie. And the twist is, the main character of this movie is aware that he is in a horror movie. And what he does throughout the entire movie is try to escape the horror movie that he is in and help his fellow characters in the movie escape the movie as well. So here are the things that I like about Legend Has It. One of the first things that I gotta say that I like the most about this movie is the plot. The plot is pretty damn original. You know, when you first say that the movie's about a bunch of college kids going into the woods and they get killed by some sort of creature, right there you think it's going to be a pretty cliche film. But seeing as how there's a giant twist that some of the characters find out that they're actually in a horror movie and they're trying to figure out how do you escape a movie, that becomes pretty interesting. And it's quite exciting to see how they adapt to being in a horror movie. They find out what the tropes are in horror movies so they can fight back against the monster. And it begins to really work in their benefit, especially towards the end when they fight the monster. And I'm not going to ruin how they defeat the monster, but there's a great moment when the fourth wall is broken so much that you actually see crew members, and it's done on purpose, and it's one of the funniest things in the entire movie. And this is a horror comedy, in case you didn't realize that already. Now that I'm on the topic of the characters, I wanted to mention who my favorite character / actor was in this entire movie. My favorite character by far was played by the actor Jeremiah Tuttle. Jeremiah Tuttle was hands down my favorite actor in this entire movie. He was not only the funny character in this movie, he was the scene stealer in this film. He was making me laugh every time he came on screen. I just kept wanting to see more of him. And for those of you who are wondering what Jeremiah looks like, he's actually on the back cover along with the rest of the cast. He's right here where my finger is. And as you can tell, unlike the other characters who are with their significant other, Jeremiah is instead making love to a tree trunk, which is quite nice. And I think it pretty much sums up his character in this movie. Jeremiah was just extremely funny. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that either his lines were improvised or he adapted the lines to where it would match his personality in real life more. Another thing I really liked was the tree monster in this movie. Even though this is a really low budget film, I gotta say the creature was actually pretty good. There were times that I could tell that, for example, the bottom half of the costume wasn't exactly as well made as like the top part. But I can forgive that because I know that this was such a micro budget film. And even though it was such a low budget film, I still think the creature was created pretty well. And I also gotta say, I love the sound that the monster makes. It's not like a growl or a yell. It's just kind of more of a creepy, like a ticking sound. I wouldn't say like a cricket, but kind of close to that. Like maybe a cricket in like maybe slow motion, like they did that in post, something like that. I don't know exactly what the sound was, but it was creepy, and I liked it. And you knew he was around when you heard that sound, which is something I really appreciated. Another big thing that I appreciated was how the creators of this film were willing to poke fun at themselves. By that I mean, seeing as how this is such a fourth wall breaking film, Insane Mike was willing to work on that and even make fun of himself. Like there were times, like every time there was a nude scene, they would break the fourth wall, explain how exploitative this was, make a joke out of it, and then move on. And one of the last things I want to talk about that I enjoyed about the film is all of the practical effects. So, although they were pretty cheesy, you know, like there were times where they were just throwing the limbs everywhere and you could easily tell that the limbs were just props that you could buy in any Halloween store. Even though it was stuff like that, there were also times where the practical effects were really good. Like, there's a decapitation scene, which was awesome. That was probably one of my favorite death scenes. There was one scene where a woman got a branch jabbed into her eye socket. You know, that was awesome. You know, stuff like that was great, and I love that. You know, I'm always have and always will be a fan of practical effects because I feel in the horror genre that's the way to go. And I am very appreciative that even though they didn't have a huge budget for this film, they still took the time and effort to do all practical effects for the death scene. And I will always have respect for filmmakers who do that. So now I'd like to share with you some of the things that I didn't like about Legend Has It. So before I even begin talking about some of the things I didn't like about the movie, I first wanted to talk about the cover. Personally, I don't like the cover. And here's why. I'll give you a quick look, and then I'll explain. One of the big things I don't like about this cover is there is just way too much going on. You got the title up here, which is good, but then you got all of this just cluster of stuff, which is pretty much what it is. Like you got the tagline, which is too big and in the middle, which I didn't like. And then you got quotes, fake quotes from people, which, okay. One of the quotes is, "This movie is a must-see," by Helen Keller. I highly doubt that Helen Keller saw this movie. You know why? Because she's dead. And there's some others. And then another thing is, there's a pretty poorly cropped in picture of Linnea Quigley, who is in this movie, where it goes, special appearance by Scream Queen, legendary Scream Queen Linnea Quigley. So you got that, you got unnecessary quotes that aren't real, you got this. And then when you really notice the background, the picture itself isn't really that good either, because you got the main character here, and you got half of the monster there, and then you got all of this background. There's more background on the front cover than there is of the characters in the actual movie. And I don't, I think they could have done better with that, honestly. They could have maybe just had a picture of the monster instead. I would have still bought the film. Personally, I'm just not a fan of the cover. Maybe you are, and that's okay. This is just my personal opinion. Now that I was speaking about Linnea Quigley, this is where I want to go on from there. I didn't hate Linnea Quigley in this film, so let's not, make that assumption. What I didn't like is the overhyping of the fact that Linnea Quigley is in this movie. On one hand, I understand. Linnea Quigley is literally the only Hollywood star actress with a name to her, whatever you want to call it. She's the only known actor in this movie. So I get that you want to promote that. I understand that. But then when you see the movie, you realize that it was overhyped way too much that she's in this movie. Here's the reality. Linnea Quigley is in this movie. But she's only in this movie for 2 scenes. An estimated runtime for her on screen is about 2 minutes. Maybe. I get that you want to promote there's a star from Hollywood in your film, but this is a cameo. It's not like she was a supporting role or anything. She's in this movie for 2 minutes. If you literally went to the bathroom and then came back, you could have missed her scene. And that's another thing that I actually started to realize, that her character isn't really needed in this movie. Like, she plays the mom of the main character, but when I really got to thinking about the scene she was in, you could have easily cut those scenes out, and there wouldn't have been a beat missed in this film. And so that's why I don't like the overhypeness when it comes to, this is kind of more in general of independent films, when they do that, when they overhype it too much, where we have a star movie. Yeah, but they're in the movie for like a minute. So it's not as big of a deal. You had enough money to pay for someone for a day. Impressive on one hand, but on the other hand, you don't have to overhype it that much. You don't need to put her on the cover and make it think that she's going to be in this movie for like half of the movie, when in reality she's only in the movie for 2 minutes. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Another thing I didn't really like was there was way too much fourth wall breaking. Now, granted, this is a movie that's entirely fourth wall breaking. So, you're thinking, how can I even complain about that when you knew, when you bought this movie, that this movie was about breaking the fourth wall throughout the entire movie? Well, yes, but at the same time, it was used too much in this way. I was fine with the character finding out that he was actually in a movie, that he was talking to us sometimes, and all of that. That part I was fine with. That part I liked. But then there were scenes where breaking the fourth wall was just unnecessary. Like, there were times where he would be having a conversation with the character who didn't believe that they were in a movie, and then out of nowhere, he would just turn to the camera and go, "This guy, am I right or what?" And it didn't make sense, because a lot of those times when it happened, it was kind of like towards the end, like when the monster was starting to kill people and stuff, and it's like, I don't really feel this is like a time to be joking around, talking to us. Try and get your friends to believe you. Get out of the movie. And I just didn't like that. I didn't like how much they went on this joke. You can overdo it to where it becomes stale and bland, to where you don't even recognize that it's a joke anymore. Too much fourth wall breaking, too much reusing the same fourth wall jokes. It did make the story drag a bit, especially towards the middle. Like, this movie's only like 80 minutes long, but it feels longer. And I feel that's because of the constant fourth wall breaking jokes. I'm fine with them being there, but when you use the same type of joke again and again, where he's talking to the camera, addressing us, just the same jokes here and there, just in a different location, it starts to get stale. And because of that, it felt like the movie was taking longer to get to its point, to the final act. And that was one of the more crucial, I think, dislikes, was that because of these constant fourth wall jokes, of them pretty much being the same jokes, it made the story longer. And it shouldn't do that when this movie's only 80 minutes long. So now we look at the IMDb ratings for The Legend Has It. As of right now, Legend Has It has an IMDb rating of 4.3. Now the question of the day is, do I agree with this rating for Legend Has It? I would have to say yes. But I don't mean yes in a negative way. I mean yes because I feel this is a hit or miss with audience members. I feel this is the type of movie that you're either going to like or you're going to hate. In fact, I looked at the scoring on IMDb, and I actually found out that 65.1% of people who rated this movie gave this movie a 1 star. I haven't seen that high of a percentage for a 1 star rating since I saw the Birdemic movies. Now on that side, I totally agree. Those Birdemic movies are fucking garbage. But for this, I think it's a bit harsh, honestly. Yes, I do believe a 4 rating is probably the best, because honestly, if you're not a true horror movie fan, you're probably not going to be able to appreciate the movie for what it is, or what it's attempting to be, whatever you want to say. If you're just a casual horror movie fan, you wouldn't really consider yourself a fan of the genre, yeah, I can understand that you're going to give this a 1 star rating. but I don't think that's fair to the filmmakers and to the people who put in a lot of hard work to make this movie. Yes, this movie does have some flaws and stuff, but what movie doesn't? You know, at the end of the day, I will always give respect to independent filmmakers and independent movies, especially when they have such a low budget like these ones, because, quite honestly, making a movie is hard, but making an independent movie is even harder. So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and quite honestly, if you are a true horror movie fan, I do recommend this. I am going to leave links below to where you can purchase this movie, check out the trailer, and I'm even going to maybe even leave a link to Prescribed Films' YouTube channel. You know, check out some of the other work. They make short films as well. They made a shit ton of other movies that I think are pretty good as well. So they're horror movie fans, they're horror movie filmmakers, period. They only make horror movies, and they make them for low budget films, and they do it with the knowledge that they know that they're not going to get paid. They make this movie and they try to make some money off the movie so they can make another movie. They never expect to get paid for their hard work. They do these films because they love making films. And for that, I do have my respect for them. So, if you want to check this movie out, check out the links below. I do recommend it. And until next time, thank you for checking out this review.